Good evening, everybody. Monday night, here we are, 6:30 as usual, and we're going to talk about patterns tonight. It's interesting, I was going back looking at a whole bunch of the lives that I've done that are on the members page, and I think I've talked about this and also probably touched on it, but to make it its own show, if you will, its own live stream, I don't think I have done that at all. So tonight we're going to talk about patterns. That's my goal. We'll wait a little bit longer, wait for a couple more people to jump on here before I get going. But otherwise, to those of you that have joined, welcome. And as always, I'll answer some questions at the end of this little rant on patterns, because patterns, it's everything. It is everything. Hey, Michelle, how are you? All right, I'm going to jump into it. First things first, I want you to understand that patterns can be both positive and negative, okay? That's the first thing. The positive is you can go grab the leash that's hanging on the hook and your dog behaves wonderfully, sitting there waiting for you. You can put the leash on, the dog waits there. You can put your boots on and your jacket, and your hat and your gloves, everything that you have to do in the winter in Vermont. And your dog sits there and just is so patient and so just behaving so well. And then as soon as you grab the leash, you go to the door, dog waits patiently, you open the door, the dog's doing still just an amazing job, and then you just walk out together as a team. There's your positive behavior. Now the negative is that the dog sees you walk for the leash and just blows through the roof, the ceiling, so excited, and is bouncing off the walls and is whining and almost barking, and then everything just goes downhill from there. Let's just say it stays that way throughout the entire walk until you get back and unhook the leash. Patterns. Now here's the thing about patterns too. It is up to us to pinpoint what part of the pattern is going wrong. Because when we can pinpoint that, that helps us, and it actually gives us access to create new patterns that are more beneficial. And also, if you think about it, this is just giving more direction. This is all about direction. Instead of constantly correcting or constantly saying no. So for the dog that when you start to walk towards the leash that goes ballistic, we have to put a wrench in those gears and teach the dog actually what we want instead. Long term, it may be putting that dog on a leash and letting let the dog drag the leash around the house for a while, just to kind of get used to it. But the other part of it too is I would still have a leash hanging up. So 2 leashes, yes. So I want you to see how I would break this down, because this is a part of how to handle this type of situation. So dog gets desensitized with dragging the leash around, supervised, obviously. Now it's time for a walk. So instead of you just getting up and randomly going and walking towards the leash, maybe you call the dog over, grab the leash that's hooked to it, stand up, put the dog into a sit, and now walk calmly over to the leash that's hanging and grab that leash. And so what we're doing now, instead of telling the brain and telling the dog, no, 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 we're actually teaching and giving direction. And we're telling them this is what we do want. This actually gets us out of the door faster if you behave well. So in order for us to understand and pinpoint the certain areas that we need help with our dogs, we have to slow things down. We have to do this incrementally. Because if we don't, if you just stand up and walk for the leash and grab the leash and now your dog's going ballistic, well, the point of slowing down is going, okay, when did all this start? When did it all start? Was it when you stood up off of the couch, or was it when you just reached for the leash? And this is what I mean by this too, is because understanding the pattern helps you understand where things go wrong and go astray for you. But here, This is the part that I want you to understand too. There's negative patterns and there's behavior positive patterns, but also there may be patterns that are half right and half wrong. Because maybe that dog, you can go and get the leash and it's no problem, and the dog's behaving really, really well, but as soon as you grab the doorknob, the dog tries to bolt through the door. So now we look at, that's the point right there. So when you're able to pinpoint when things are going wrong in the pattern, I almost want you to put a magnifying glass on that part right there, okay? So, because we have to break that down. So let's go back to the dog walking towards the leash. So if I have that dog already on a leash to start with, and I walk that dog towards where the other leash is hanging, and I do it with purpose, not with speed, but just intention that, hey, this is the way this is going to be from now on. I would walk over, I would grab the leash, kind of show it to the dog, hang it back up, and then walk the dog back over to the couch. Hang for a second, stand back up, grab the leash, walk the dog over to the leash that's just hanging, show him the leash, hang it up, bring the dog back. Because we have to create these repetitions of success. You've heard me say this before. But we also have to teach the dog that there is actually a new pattern that we want them to follow. Because we can't just throw the wrench in the gears and think that the dog is going to just get it just the first time. That's not. Rarely will that happen. But if you put the magnifying glass on that part, where is it going wrong? When I get up and walk towards the leash, okay. That's what we have to repeat over and over again by teaching the dog what we want instead. So that's how we set ourselves up for success. Now, for the dog that does everything well until you grab the doorknob, well, it's reaching for the doorknob that is the problem. That's what gets put under the magnifying glass. That's what gets blown up. It's almost like, the pictures on our phone, right? When we can zoom in, we have to zoom in on this. Let's work just on this. Let's create a new pattern with this, and then we'll zoom back out and we get to see the whole pattern. So whatever part of the pattern that you have a hard time with, zoom in on it. Put the magnifying glass on it. Work on just that part. And then work your way back out to the bigger picture. Patterns. Here's the thing too. If you create a pattern that's very, very simple, 3 steps, 4 steps even at the most, if you create a pattern that's very simple, your dog will catch on very quickly. Very quickly. I was working with a client today, and we were teaching her dog out to let go of a tennis ball. And she would call the dog to, I told her, I said, call the dog to you. And the dog had a leash on. And I said, just grab the leash, don't grab for the ball, and just put a little tension up on the leash. She did. The dog dropped the ball, walked around behind her, and then looked up at her, waiting for her to grab the ball and throw it. So she did, because I told her to. Dog goes and gets the ball, brings it back, chews on it a little bit. She calls the dog over to her, leash tension up, dog drops, walks around her. By the way, we didn't teach the walking around her part. This is, he was doing this on his own. Walks around her to the other side, looks up. Dog does this 2 or 3 more times. So a total of 5 times. 5th time, same thing. Dog goes and gets the ball, brings it back. She calls the dog over. What does he do when he gets to her? Drops the ball. She never had to even reach for the leash. He already dropped it because he knew what was coming. So the pattern was so clear and concise, so clear and so concise. He knew what was coming, so he thought, I'll skip that step. I already know what you're going to do. I know exactly what to do because you've shown me a pattern and I expect it. So if I already know what you're going to do, it would make sense that I skip it. And this is what dogs and animals actually will do. They'll create shortcuts for themselves so they'll know what they need to do to get what they want. I had a trainer tell me one time, and I thought this was brilliant. If a rabbit is being chased by a fox and the rabbit just keeps going up and over, trying to run away from the fox. Up and over. How many times does it have to happen before the fox starts going and curving and curving and then just goes and cuts off the corner? So instead of going up and over, the fox goes that way. How many times does it have to happen? I don't know. Depends on the dog, depends on the experience. But it's a pattern. And I will tell you, there are so many patterns out there. So many patterns. Dogs that are reacting towards people that they don't know or don't like is a pattern. A dog acting fearful is a pattern. They're only doing what their instincts are telling them that they should do, or past associations. That's why everybody says that, the dog doesn't like a guy with sunglasses, a beard, and a hat. Okay, there's probably a couple of bad associations, but unless we break that pattern, it'll remain there the same. So our job is to break that pattern of any unwanted behavior. But start small. Don't start with anything major. Just start small. Because when you can accomplish something small and do that a few times with a few different things, wow. Confidence starts to grow. We start to get excited about what we're doing. Hey, I did that. The dog starts to feel good. You start working together. So these patterns that you have, I'm sure you have some negative patterns. We all do. And I'm sure you have some positive patterns. And you may have some mixtures as well. So if there's one little thing that is just like one little minor thing you'd like to change, instead of thinking, I have to tell my dog no, 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 no all the time, start thinking about what you want your dog to do. Let's create that foundation first. And then if the dog deviates from there, then we can address, we can correct, we can tell the dog no, whatever. But it's not fair if we haven't taught the dog what we want first and then just keep telling the dog no. It's not fair at all. We would never teach a 5-year-old or just put an equation in front of a 5-year-old that was 2 + 2, but never teach them what it equals. And then correct them when they're wrong. No, that's wrong. See how unfair that can be? We have to teach. That's all there is to it. All right. I know Michelle wrote something. I'm having some progress with the dogs from a few weeks ago with segment on slowing things down. That's amazing, Michelle. Great feedback there. Great feedback. So patterns are everything. Here's something for you too that I learned as far as patterns are concerned. And by the way, feel free to post any questions that you have while I tell this quick story. It probably came, it was probably summertime last year, maybe springtime. And I don't know when. Again, I had to hear repetitions of it before I understood what happened. But I remember somebody saying, a couple of my customers are saying, our dogs get us up in the morning. And I'm like, really? You can just you can wait it out, so ignore them so they don't wake you up, which when we're all kind of waking up, we don't exactly jump out of bed. At least I don't jump right out of bed as soon as my eyes open. And they would let their dogs out to go to the bathroom and then bring them back in. They'd get their breakfast and then mill around for a little while. And then people would, the owners would go off to work, whatever. And so I had a few clients in a row and they gave me that exact same pattern of what was going on. Dog would wake him up in the morning, let him out to go to the bathroom, feed him, and then they just kind of hang out until, all the morning stuff was going on. And then it hit me. If you take this analogy of skipping a step, okay, so the rabbit keeps running up here and over and up and over, and the fox goes, yep, I know exactly where you're going to go, so I'm going to go and curve, and then I really know where you're going to go, so I'm just going to cut off the corner completely and do away with that corner, do away with that step. So what do you think the dog's doing? The dog goes, wow, if I get my owner up in the morning, I get fed. I get breakfast. Hey, human, wake up, feed me. Because what's the pattern? If I wake the human up, I go outside to go to the bathroom, and then I get fed. And food is the reward. the majority of people that I have run into that have a problem with their dogs getting them up in the morning normally get food first thing. First thing. They don't even do anything to earn it. No walks, no staying out of the kitchen, no letting you have your coffee in the morning, nothing. Food, feed me. So that's a pattern. To me, it's a negative pattern, but to some dog owners, it may be a positive pattern. Totally up to you, whatever you feel that it is. Totally up to you. But Lisa, funny that's us. Gets us up and complains until breakfast. My kids do the same thing, except they don't get me up. As soon as I get them up, and then it's all about breakfast. All about breakfast. All right, if there's any questions, please fire away with them. And just to also give you a heads up, you're all going to see a good size influx of new members coming in, probably next week at some point, because these are all the Canine Initiative members that have signed up for my program, my 6-month program, and they get access to the group as well. So our group will be growing, which is a wonderful thing. And I'm hoping that some of them will post some of their things in here as well, because they're all going through a number of different behaviors, if you will, and everything. But I've got a couple spots left to fill up my group, but otherwise it's going to be a fun group. And I've got a couple of group members in here that are actually doing it too, which is great, because this will be the spot for them to hopefully post their successes or their struggles, setbacks, whatever. But it's a 6-month program, so I know I'm going to see some ups and downs with it during the whole process. But it's long-term goals that are the main focus of this. So, all right, doesn't look like we have much for questions tonight, so I will bail. Also, I posted it on the main Facebook page. I forgot to post it here. What the next, well, all the way through till April, what all the subjects I'm going to be discussing in here. And so I posted it on the website. You can just go onto the website, the Coaches Group website page, and you'll see the breakdown of what my plan is. And I'm also up for ideas too. If there's some things that you want me to talk about, I will certainly put them into the hopper here and talk about them. That's really it. So I think we're good for tonight. You guys have a wonderful night. We'll see you next Monday. Bye.